Okay, I present you Tim Jones, Jay Elkady, and Lucas Zdick and Philip Bauer to present Upgrading the Beast, Plone at the University of Oxford.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us for this talk today. And so, as you can see from the title, it's about upgrading the beast, which is our implementation at the University of Oxford, more specifically in the Medical Sciences division there. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are here to hear about the more finer details and the probably more interesting stuff about the project from Philip and Lukasz. But myself and Jay work more on the product management and project management side of it. And so we thought it'd be useful to give you a bit of background about the project, where it came from and why, just to give it a bit of context as to where we are. So, as we've already been introduced, but we have, specifically for this part of the project, we've been working with Philip Bauer, as a lot of you will know. As introduced, we've also got one of our other colleagues here in the audience who is Arta, who is also a developer with us. Lukasz, who you'll be hearing from shortly, Jay, who's the product manager, and myself, Tim, I'm the head of service delivery at Fry. So, starting out with the University of Oxford, when we first engaged with them, it was about 11 years ago, which was actually when I started at Fry IT myself as well, so I've been around a little bit of time. And the university at that point in the Medical Sciences division had one lady and creating hundreds of websites. On different technologies, ranging from WordPress to Plone, basic HTML. And all of this was very inconsistent and unstandardized. There were multiple different versions and things that was there to be contended with. The university quickly realized that this was not going to be sustainable in the long term. So when we first started working with the university, we were working on standalone website projects for individual research groups and departments. And we were also helping with some more generic technical help for the lady who was managing, like I say, hundreds of websites across different versions and things like that. Collectively, along with the university and working with this lady, a lady called Anne, we very quickly realized that their current model wasn't going to be sustainable for them or something that we would be able to support as well as we would hope going forwards. And this was purely because the demands and expectations of the departments and units far outweighed the resourcing, like I say, the one lady, and also the time available. It was clear then that a potential partnership with an external organisation like ourselves would provide more consistent resourcing, management and support of the websites within the division, and this would be a huge benefit to them. This relationship would also help to provide better stability, support, training, and accountability, as well as evolution of a common platform for the division's websites. Initial discussions led us to think about how we might be able to support the current suite of between 200 and 300 websites, some legacy and some active. We quickly realized, like I say, that it wouldn't be sustainable. We couldn't come up with a model that would even get us close to kind of lining up all the different websites, platforms and things onto consistent versions, and meaning that you could actually do something proactive rather than just consistent maintenance, patches and upgrades. This was made even clearer with the different demands from the different divisions and units across the university, especially because everyone thought they were a little bit special. They do. So, out of this conversation came the idea of a turnkey solution. A solution that would enable departments and units to request new websites and have them started rapidly with a very straightforward set of features and functionality that anyone could get into quickly. One of the things that was also demanded of this was the ability to customize the websites quickly and easily so that we could still follow some of their brand guidelines. We quickly got stuck in, working with 3 pilot departments within the Medical Sciences division at Oxford to understand what a version 1 of Haiku, which is what we've called the software as a service platform that we deliver to the university. It was previously known imaginatively as Oxford University MSD Turnkey Solution. We quickly got into version 1 of what that would look like. We uncovered some of the department's biggest pain points, such as integrations with publication systems, university-wide event systems, single sign-on, letting people update their own profiles but not ruin them, and all different bits and pieces like that. and what areas would be considered for a good pilot. We agreed that in the first implementation, we'd focus on providing the essential content types, publications, integrations, and the granular permission schemes, hence leveraging the power of Plone, and a timeless, as far as possible, theme, and some flexibility within constraint. We quickly got out an early beta version, and we worked quickly with the pilot departments to refine the system, its content types, layouts, and integrations. And within a year and a half, the first website had gone live, with a couple more following quickly afterwards. It's important now to note that at the University of Oxford, no one can tell anyone what to do. Unlike some other institutions where departments and units must go to central IT services to procure a website or system, Oxford lets you do what you want, when you want. If you want your friend's uncle's third cousin's twice removed friend from down the road who did an HTML course last year in their summer holidays to build your website, go for it. This had its own issues, not only with maintenance, but consistency and brand awareness. One of the underlying themes within the medical sciences division that they had in mind when looking to work with us on a more turnkey product was to take that opportunity to steer their departments and units to have a more consistent branding guidelines, so that if you went from the Department of Pediatrics to the Department of Psychiatry, you knew you were still within the same division and also the same university, which before using Haiku might have been a bit tougher. Once we had the initial 3 websites set up, we then began what we thought would be the biggest challenge: selling people a product and service that they were used to getting for free, as it was with the one internal person managing their web estate up until this point. I'm pleased to say that we were quickly proved wrong. Once we had launched, other departments and units came to asking us to create websites for them purely through word of mouth and from seeing what their peers were creating. All of a sudden, there was an understanding that by paying, they would get a service that suited them, and that they would be able to build and get the feeling of a community which they could all contribute to, leveraging each other's knowledge and skill sets. This all driving forwards to create the one more coherent medical sciences division brand within the University of Oxford. As the beast grew, we realised that we needed more people at Fry to support and manage Haiku. This was why we brought in Jay, our now product manager, to work closely with the internal team and clients alike to continue the successes. One of the things I think it is also important to point out is that alongside Jay, as you saw from the intro slide, we have 2 to 3 developers that actually work on this at any one time. Hence, we work with Philip at the moment as well for, like I say, upgrading the beast. So now I'm going to hand you over to Jay, who's going to continue a bit more about the website project.
Thank you, Tim. So with the continued rollout of new websites, the inevitable happened. With each new website and therefore new projects, requests for new functionality came in on a bespoke basis to fit the requirements of these different websites, these different projects. This feeling was compounded by the fact that Haiku had now become a paid product as a service. So we quickly realized that we were not ready to take on some of the larger departments with more complex requirements, and also understood the importance of not trying to run before we could walk. We were, of course, listening to these bigger departments, guided by their ideas, even if we couldn't start to work on them at that time. So moving forward, by maintaining one code base and system, it was easy for us to roll out new sites which fitted the model, as well as support and servicing them. So this meant we had development maintenance, which whilst also giving us a bit more time and space to focus on the product. So moving forward from there, we had the resource and time to start working on new functionality that would benefit all customers who are using the platform, and this process we called Haiku Product Evolution. So Haiku Product Evolution consists of a variety of activities, including holding regular user groups, allowing our users to suggest and upvote new functionality ideas that they want to see on the platform, and this can be done through the sort of Haiku HQ customer platform that they have access to. Monitoring and understanding market changes and trends, but crucially, closely nurturing customer relationships for a natural product development. So having conversations with the people who are using the platform is, in my opinion, the most important way of understanding and learning about which direction you should be heading in as a manager of this product and as a company. So carrying out these activities, we're able to take specific requests and create general solutions to our growing and varied customer base. This helped to guide our development over Haiku over about 10 years, getting us to the point where we were pre-migration. During this 10-year period, new content types and new functionality were developed, and we were even able to develop a content sharing functionality, which allowed websites to share content between websites, allowing editors to clone and subscribe to content, keeping it in sync with the original on the sort of cloned website, in addition to simply taking a copy of some content, migrating it over to whatever website you wanted to, and making some tweaks to it. So this is an example of some functionality that was extremely powerful for the Medical Sciences Division at Oxford, who found great value in the collaboration and republishing of content, which benefits all of them, especially in this sort of field of medical research and higher education. So to summarize where we've gotten to since those first 3 pilot websites that Tim mentioned, we've increased to over 140 websites running the same version of Haiku across multiple clusters. We've made available a well-planned suite of content types and functionality. We've developed multiple integrations with university platforms, including Symplectic, which is a publications aggregator, University Maps, Open Talks aggregators, and amongst others. We've also provided an impactful design system which allows non-technical site owners to champion style and design initiatives in line with contemporary web design practices and in line with their own brand requirements, etc. So we'll demo some key features later on, but first we'll cover how we are getting that complex system, Haiku, into Plone 6. So you might wonder why it took us so long to carry out this upgrade, and that's a fair thought. Well, there were a few things to consider. The fear of the monster. It's the not knowing what you don't know that can be a scary challenge. Philip used the phrase whales under the water, which I thought was quite poignant. Working as part of a small team is great, but it can be challenging, especially when you're faced with such a monumental task, and just general uncertainty about the approach to the migration. As I'm sure you'll appreciate, managing something like this with such a small team is incredibly challenging. Just keeping up with documentation and user guides, as well as having to update all of that for the upgraded product, is a real challenge and something that we still grapple with today. But moving forward to the migration, plans for this date back a couple of years. However, upgrading Haiku's underlying engines is not something that we'd undertaken before as a project. The initial CMS solution we provided to Oxford ran on Plone 3, although Haiku began its life on Plone 4. So the Plone 6 migration plan kind of began to pick up pace with a series of meetings with Philip Bauer, whose exceptional experience in migrations has become an absolutely invaluable asset for us in helping to structure and undertake this migration alongside our committed developers, Lukasz and Arta. So we're now going to hand over to Philip and Lukasz, who are going to talk through the technical aspects of this behemoth task, migrating Haiku.
Yeah, thanks. This is not going to be too technical, but a couple of details are worth mentioning maybe. So I was approached in spring last year with this project, and the requirements were special compared to all other migrations that I've done before, mostly because there's like about 140 or plus sites with the almost same installation. By almost, I mean that the content structure is different, obviously. The content is different. They have slightly different designs, different configuration, like email server maybe, admin, users, stuff like that, and also different installed add-ons, because the add-ons provide the features provided by Haiku are encapsulated by add-ons. There's nothing very different from Quave, for example. There's like an add-on, but you can enable it, or if it's enabling or installing, it's basically some configuration that lives in the database that makes a feature available or not. But the biggest thing in this case, and I've talked about that yesterday a long time, is that nothing should change, which is usually an approach to a migration that I would say don't do that, because you can't sell that. But they decided to do it, and once after I saw the product, the old product, I decided that's actually a good idea, because the old product actually looks really good and works really well. So not approaching that as a relaunch at least because they don't have to sell that to the client in that way, because it's a software as a service thing. So different rules apply. So keep all the features the same. So going to Volto is not an option. And very important thing also came out that it's not an option. I'm going to go there. So first I read everything, and I found out if we can run this in Python 3. So there is everything content-wise was already dexterity, so that was good. So that saves a lot of trouble and time. There's a ton of code. 2,000 Python files, not lines of code. That would be easy. 500 page templates. So a lot of stuff to look at and evaluate, but the quality overall is actually pretty good. So kudos to the development team. Even though there was Plone 4 code, there was I can always complain, but there was very few reasons to complain about anything there. So really, really, really good work. The test coverage though was really not that surprisingly good. And that's a challenge when you do a migration, because when you do a migration, everything is broken. But if the tests are still green, then it seems something might be good. But so you have very little indication if all the test coverage is not that good. Also, and that's the big thing. The add-ons and dependencies were interesting because they used collective cover, and that is. They don't have like a cover page for every site. They have like tens of thousands of cover pages. This is the main tool to build content. So obviously we thought, okay, what should we do? Migrate that to Mosaic, which was already like going to work in Plone 5.2 and in Python 3, whereas collective cover is not really ready yet, but I figured out there is a branch that hang on, that was too quick. That supported 5.2, not yet Python 3 and not yet 6. But I looked at that and looked at the work that Kleber Santos and Wesley Barroso Lopez did, and I saw that it was really, really good work, and there was not that much for us to do to make that work. So I figured out that yes, actually we can make that happen, and we did that. First we made a plan. Since there is no archetypes to dexterity migration, that was like my first thinking, no archetypes to dexterity, okay, let's do that in place. Since then, I would have changed my approach and always planned for export-import migration, and if that has, I don't know, for some reasons that I can't think of now at least, wouldn't work, then maybe use in place. Yeah, that was the thinking at that point. And so there were a couple of steps that we needed to do to get there, like an in-place update to Python to Plone 5.2, then do the Python 3 support stuff, migrate the database to Python 2 from 2 to 3, which means supporting the code base had to support both versions. This is basically exactly the same stuff that we did for Plone itself. Without flying that much blind, which is good. And then the idea was to combine all these steps in a pipeline of automated upgrades and run these for all 150 websites. So it turned out that, and then migrate that to Plone 6 as soon as possible. And later it turns out that that's not a really good idea to do that. So the initial tasks, and I stress that and not talk about the migration itself so much because of reasons that I'll explain later. So a lot of work went into upgrading the application, and you remember how many 2,000 Python files? I know there's a lot of automated helpers, and I wrote the documentation for those, and I know how to use them. But still, there's a lot of manual work to get the application to actually start up on Python 3. And basically, we followed the docs for migrating Plone 5.2 to Python 3. The good thing is I've written them, so I know how to use them and get it running them and worry about any data later, obviously. And in October 2021, we actually were able to start it up in Python 3 without errors. We were able to create a site and install all Haiku packages, but everything was broken still. But like the instance didn't die, and there were no tracebacks and stuff, but it looked horrible and nothing worked. But we had a working setup to actually start the tests. Obviously, these were also broken or not even written. And parallel to that, I started the first attempts to export data and import it into a brand new 5.2 site at that point on Python 3, and that looked promising. And in November, actually, we were able to switch to Alpha 1 of Plone 6. We have updated all Haiku packages for Python 3, and that was an intense month, as you can guess. All tests were passing, like everything was actually green. Collective cover was usable in Plone 6. I was able to export all relevant data from a Plone 4 site and import all relevant data in a Plone 6 site. And at that point, we decided, okay, let's not do the original plan and use collective export-import instead. And so the old plan switched from the one on the left, which is an abbreviated, simplified version, to the also abbreviated and simplified version on the right side. So everything goes in one big step. So how did that work out? Basically, we had to write migration hooks instead of upgrade steps, which is good because they're much faster, because they don't have to deal with a database, but just with a bunch of JSON, mostly. And some very important pieces of code ended up in collective export import, so the community got something out of that. I'm going to show some of that also. But even more ended up in examples in the docs, for example, export import, which is even better. So the point here is that the default features of export-import, after I did some minor changes, not minor, okay, some changes, did 99% of the work of the migration. Only the 1% that is edge cases and crazy add-ons like collective cover, but we don't want that in core of export-import. It's an add-on, but we don't want in that add-on. Just add code examples. That's what we did instead of that. So what can you steal? I'm going to show you. I have a tab open. So I showed that at the training yesterday. So yesterday we had a migration training. I showed some of that already. So there's lots of code examples. Here I'm going to need to go to the navigation on the top to actually find the things that are relevant for this project. Hang on, where is it? I'll try and find it. So somewhere there it says collective cover. Here it says collective cover. Just one example. There is an example how to export collective cover and import collective cover. And you can obviously steal that and many other things that are in that documentation. So some tiny examples for how that works. I'm actually not going to show code examples for any of that because I did that for an audience of 25 people yesterday who actually will have to do migrations in the next couple of months. So look at the training documentation. There's a migration specs practice, I think that's called. So if you're planning to do a migration, this is where you go read all that stuff, so I don't have to read it to you. We obviously, in this case, we have instance behaviors and we have annotations and marker interfaces. We have cover, that was the code I showed you. But this is a nifty little thing that where I have added a screenshot for, where we export registry settings that are not the default value. So that can be helpful because remember, it's not one site where everything is in an XML file because we're good developers. We're putting all our configuration in there. These are sites that are managed by editors, and they're configured, and the configuration ends up in Plone Registry, and they differ from site to site. And everything that's different from the default can be exported with that. There's a pull request in the documentation for collective export import that has this code, all of it for you to grab. Nothing for you to do except for copy and paste. Similar with settings, but that code is even simpler. In the import thing, we use something like import deferred. Who was at the training yesterday knows what I'm talking about. And the tiles for cover, not that interesting. The only thing I'm going to show here is the thing with the event handlers. Because when you import, when you migrate a site and you import the data, imagine you have a content type like department. And when you add a department as an editor, you automatically want to populate that area with there needs to be an image gallery and a person gallery and whatever. All that nonsense needs to be auto-generated, auto-configured. But for a migration, obviously you don't want that, and there's a very, very easy fix. At the beginning of the migration step, you provide a importing marker, or whatever you want to call that, on the request, and during the event handler, which is the bottom part, you say, is that there? Then please don't do anything. And it saves you a lot of time. You just, since this is everything there, export import doesn't mess with the event handlers of Plone core itself that much, so that there's no problem there. You only have to take care of your own event handlers. That's always good. There were a couple of challenges. Where are my challenges? So one is that there are obviously, as I said, 140 plus portals with different settings. Another is that there were instance behaviors, and the worst thing in Plone, as always in computer science, is cache invalidation, and invalidating the caches of the schema on objects, on the request, on it lives everywhere, is not that easy if you want stuff to happen when a behavior is there, because you need the data to be actually deserialized. That was very technical, sorry. That was hard. As I said, cache invalidation. Also, it was hard to develop against Plone 6 core dev, because there was a lot of time between Plone Alpha 1 and 2, and we obviously had to pin revisions because there were fixes that we really, really wanted, and that was annoying. And waiting for a release, and annoying Maurits with questions, and so it was a bit hard. There was also a fork of Plone REST API, which was like the most horrible idea I've ever seen. We removed that. And collective cover was also a challenge. So, but a couple of good lessons. Collective cover is actually awesome. It really works well, has a great user interface. Obviously for classic, I prefer Volto, I know, but there's no chance to just move everything to Volto, and it doesn't compute. We're gonna, Lukas is gonna show you some stuff. Export import, and that's more important even, can solve even the toughest migrations. I don't think there is anything it can't do with your additional coding. It is faster by magnitudes, and by faster, I not only mean that it finishes fast, that it's very rapid turnaround, because if you only export one content type or a part of the site or one problem at a time, you get very quick results and can very iteratively and quickly develop, where an in-place migration because you always have to handle these huge databases, unless you strip your site down, which also takes a very long time, is much, much harder. So that is a huge, huge benefit. And it also allows you to move stuff around. And that's the main takeaway here. So I'm never thinking about that, since I'm a developer and I get paid by the hour, so I'm fine if things take a long time. But for Plone, the community and the ecosystem and the companies and the users, migrations are a coffin nail. It was horrible because they are so expensive in time. And I'm not talking, okay, you have to update your code from Plone, from Python 2 to Python 3, but the migrations themselves take so much time, and believe me, I've written most of the migration code, the hard part at least, and even for me, they take a lot of time. Some for my clients, they're really expensive, and since what I said before, I'm focusing a lot on the Python 2 to 3 update of the code and the application. From the company time I build to my client Fry, it's 15% was the actual migration. Everything else was the update to Python 3 and getting the tests running and all that stuff. But the migration is a very small part of a project budget in this case, and that's a huge change for the Plone community, because now selling migrations is much easier because they cost less. Just it's as simple as that. Yeah, that's me, and Lucas, show them what we have.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Hello. I'm going to tell you about some features we think might be interesting, which helped us to keep the project growing for so many years. And I would like to start with context behaviors, which is something which the idea started when we came to the university, and that lady managed a lot of sites, and it was in different versions. That was we found out that mostly it was because this department wanted a different Plone add-on for blogging, and another department a different add-on for the same thing. So, and that's why they hold different stacks on different versions of Plone. And from that came out the idea that we actually can handle a lot of stuff with not just creating a new content type, but also use the feature functionality of behaviors, but to not produce a large number of content types. We ended up with the solution for local behaviors, and we needed to expose it to editors. So we provided them with simple form, where in most of the content types they can select various types of context behaviors, activate actually. For example, there are behaviors which can be activated only exclusively, which is mostly used, for example, for landing pages, and it helps to editors, for example, for initial setup of the landing page. If we have a section which holds a lot of researcher profiles, it needs to have some constraint types set up, it needs to have some display view selected, and sometimes it needs to have sub-content pre-generated, so they can achieve that by just enabling such a behavior, and it does the thing for them behind the scenes. And additionally, a lot of functionality can be enabled just by marking the content, which can be done in ZMI, but this way we can expose it to editors, so they can mark some content with marker interfaces, as well as extending content instances in the similar way we did in the past with the schema editor, so you can easily add additional fields, not to all content type, all instances of the content type, but individual types. So some of the maybe interesting functionality in these context behaviors might be the geolocation-based redirection, which is used for deciding if visitor comes from one country, where to redirect him inside the website, or sharing some titles inside the whole section, which might sound weird, but there was some use case. Okay. And moving on to cover pages, which we adopted very early, and we decided for collective cover because at that time Mosaic wasn't in the state we thought that we can use it, and actually it didn't provide, the collective cover suited our needs quite more, but we needed to extend it, and so we decided to customize it because it's the beast on its own, actually. So we slightly we actually customized the layout and compose view, which is used to manage the layout of the page and creating the individual tiles and its content, to provide slightly different or more suitable user experience. One of the key changes was that additionally to settings for the individual tiles in the layout, they can now they could have individual settings per layout row, layout column, which was widely used to make, for example, full page with content inside the cover page and various different color backgrounds, text and spacing, etc., etc. Other behind that, next to it, we also bring something called private tiles, which was used in the mixture with another version of the Haiku, which was slightly differently configured, mostly by add-ons, and was used as a separate site for the internet sites, where they need to publish some content, which was also propagated to public sites. So they managed the covers as they do normally in the internet, but they marked that particular tiles as a private. So when we propagate such a cover page to the public site, these tiles were omitted, for example. We also developed a bunch of custom tiles because we very quickly find out that actually default tiles in the collective cover are great, but they sooner or later ended up for us as great templates or starting point or where to look, how to do it, but most of them we had to subclass and extend, etc. And we're moving to actually what was the most essential for the university, and that was specific research content, which was basically about presentation of the research and everything that was around the researcher profiles, which was something like university Facebook inside the medical science division, where each researcher needs to manage their own page. These researchers are grouped into the research groups, so each research group needs to have its own presentation, and each research group can appear on multiple websites, but under a different research theme. So actually all of this was built on quite large of relationships, which were which are actually from each content type to other content types and back. For one example of usage is that each researcher profile has some related research publications, and based on research publications of all researchers being member of the team of the research group are considered as research publications related to this group, etc. For the publications, we are using external source, which actually aggregates publications from multiple research sources, and it's called symplectic elements, which is standard at the university, so we had to adapt and integrate with it, as well as the altmetric service, which provides actually that small badge with it, which is some kind of a score for the research content. And also what we had to come up with, for example, for the research group, is that we combined the cover layout where you can manage a bunch of tiles, but part of the page is still held statically in the page template. So, for example, this is the static part of the research groups page, while under this there are tiles and proper cover page. And then we are also moving to the content sharing, which we had to introduce at some point because customers find out very useful to share content. So we actually came up with the idea of centralized repository for the content, which in short works the way that using the subscriber in Haiku site, we let the central repository know that there is a new content or update of the content, and this repository actually extracts the content and stores it, which is based actually currently on Pyramid SQL database, and it's indexing some of the data in Elasticsearch. And this way we were able to let users go to another website based on some settings and restrictions and fire up a form which is actually on this screenshot and search other sites based on a filter of the type and other criteria, where they can pick some page from other website and clone it into their own website, which was used as a content templates, so they can start new. If they found some similar content, they can start. They don't have to start it from scratch, but they can build on top of some of the existing, or they can, during this cloning, optionally check that they would like to subscribe for updates. So the original page, when it gets updated, these pages gets automatically updated from the central repository. It also let us introduce feature which is similar to searching to search over multiple websites, where related websites, if they are configured, can use for the global search. They use portal catalog search, but if user gets to the advanced search, next to the filters can select that wants to search all the related sites or some of them, and in that case the search is behind the scenes. The request is sent to the central repository, and search results are taken from that, and other small functionality which is pinned to this, but I'm not going to detail because we have a lot of it. There are media libraries also are 5 minutes. Okay, we have media libraries. We introduce because we at some point we found out that users can make the site very messy with the media, uploading them everywhere they want. So we came up with the idea that in the site root we will have special folder called images library, where every image uploaded to the website is actually moved automatically usually, because, for example, if you upload it through the TinyMC, it's already done. It's already uploaded to the images library, and which enables webmasters manage the images, see where the images are used, and probably delete those not used, and etc. We also sooner had so many media that we came up with the idea to integrate with the external repository, cloudinary.com, which actually provides the scales functionality and other transforms, and let us display the media, the images from the Cloudinary's CDN, which makes it much faster and more scalable, while we still kept the default blob storage as a default, which means that the original original image is always uploaded to the image field as always, and it's behind the scenes uploaded to the Cloudinary and displayed from it. But if for whatever reason somebody turns the Cloudinary integration off, or the Cloudinary isn't available, the default Plone scaling system takes place and works as normal, decreased by some advanced features. And we also replaced, for example, for news items where you can upload a lead image, we replaced that with something we called media widget, where you can upload an image, but behind the scenes it's actually moved to the images library under subsection of the images library based on where the news item is placed, and we use it even for listing. We have different images for lead image and the summary image, which is used in the listings. And also you can upload their link for the YouTube video or other services, and it automatically grabs the thumbnail from the service and displays it as the summary, as the listing image. Then we also very soon, with a growing number of sites, we had to come up with some advanced logging, because, as you can imagine, each site, especially those larger, can't run on one virtual machine, so we ended up with several clusters of multiple machines, multiple small machines, and on each machine there are usually 0 clients, etc., and everything produces a lot of logs, so we couldn't, we needed the effective way how to analyze those logs. So we actually started to collect those logs. Okay. we started to collect all those logs into the centralized log stash pipeline and advanced user interface to analyze them. And what was most important is that those messages are cached, so that if there is some very nasty error coming each second, it doesn't flood, and most critical errors are actually posted automatically to dedicated Slack room, so a lot of people can be notified before the customer. Okay, and we also had a slightly extended teaming system, which was still based on the ISO themes, file system themes, which were living in the resources directory of the build-out, and we needed to transfer the default Plone's templates. And at that time we decided that we are not going to customize all the all the templates, but we rather built over the years a large library of XSLT transformations to transform the Plone Force templates into the Bootstrap 3 at the time. And we let users to customize slightly the pages by having customizations field in every context. So if they want to lose our full support, they can put some of their JavaScripts and CSS in the page and break their site locally or globally. And we kept it still at the file system themes, which let us leave the designer mostly working on the themes by himself and generate the fancy CSS for the themes, which get loaded into the resources directory almost automatically. Currently, we have in progress also something which internally we called chromosome theming, which is external one-page application which will let webmasters generate colors for their theme. It automatically generates shades and validates for blindness and more advanced accessibility stuff. And the result of it is actually Bootstrap 5 variables, which is thankfully now available in Plone 6. So they can then only pick not theme in the Haiku site, but select one of few layouts and paste from the chromosome those variables which will change the theme, the colors, the fonts, etc. Because currently with the file system themes we have more than 100 themes they can choose from, and always there are some customizations. Yeah, and if I can quickly about the deployment, how we run this beast, we are using the build out to configure the mostly standard Zio setup, but we needed to use the Zob replication services, mostly because we needed to deploy it just for authenticated users first, and then Anonymous to prevent downtimes during the deployments, which actually required some patching of Zob, of some recipes for the build out, and we are deploying to AWS with Ansible scripts, and we automated using the Jenkins server. The current Haiku actually manages the sites in the mount points, but that's something we are as part of the migration, thanks to choosing the migration by exporting and importing, let us very easily avoid the mount points, which produces some weird errors in the past, and some of the other improvements we are currently working on, like wrapping the single sign-on with OIDC and taking into place the Amazon's load balancer and CDN. And that might be it. If you have any questions for some of us.
So, crap. Oh, now something was. Thanks. Where are we right now? Are we online with this?
Yeah.
Are we?
Where are we with the migration?
Yeah.
Sorry. The migration currently is the backend is done. All the stuff Philip talked about is ready. We are now finishing testing, because there is a lot of stuff we also did to TinyMC. So it's being updated by the designer, and we also had some additional JavaScripts and CSS in the themes which needs to be updated to work together with new resources. And we are doing some final testings before we start rolling out migration of a lot of small sites before we will start with those bigger ones.
So if you go there online now, it's still the old version.
Yeah.
Any questions? Kim.
I just wanted to say that we're from the University of Leuven in Belgium, and we're doing sort of the same thing. So replace Oxford by Leuven, and you will give the same presentation next year. But we should talk later, because we have a lot in common with our university setups.
You can do that for all universities.
Exactly.
No more questions?
Okay, you can talk to the team during the whole conference. So especially those from universities, I'm pretty sure that they have interesting war stories to share as usual. Only talk to me if it's about migration. No, that's just a joke. Talk to me about anything.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.